When I nannied, I would read the journal of the mom. I was only 20 years old, and I nannied for this little baby boy. The mom seemed off. She would sleep the entire time I was there in the mornings, or go on 3-hour runs, or sometimes would just go about her business around the house, completely ignoring me. One time we both sat in the living room while the baby was sleeping in his room. I was reading a book studying, and she sat there eating McDonald's and watching her show. She did not say a word to me the entire time. Well, one day when she was out, I snooped around and found her journal. I read the whole thing. Then got sad for her. She was so unhappy in her marriage and in life. I ended up working for her for 3 years, and we became close. But that first year was so uncomfortable and awkward. In retrospect, it seems very obvious that she was suffering from post-pregnancy depression. I lied to a blind neighbor and told him I moved away. Many years ago, I was standing on one of my balconies when a taxi driver was obnoxiously blowing his horn out front and yelling for a blind man to walk toward my voice from his own townhouse. That direction was toward traffic. My roommate and I went down and helped him to the taxi and scolded the driver for being so rude. I made the mistake of giving the blind neighbor my phone number so that I could give him a ride in the future. Then the phone calls came and never stopped, and when I gave him a ride, he would ask for various detours. I'm very calculated by nature. If he had told me beforehand where he wanted to go, it would be cool. But no, we'd be driving along and he'd throw in 2 or 3 extra places on each ride. And it came to be every day that he wanted rides. And he'd even call me to remind me to give him a ride. Not that was ever late or backed out. Finally, I had enough, so I gauged how blind he was. His response was that he was blind as a bat. A week or 2 after he said that, I told him I had a job interview in the next city. A week after that, I told him I got the job and was moving away in a month. After I moved away, it was strange as hell walking by him in silence as he stood on the sidewalk. I call fake orders into a pizza place to get free pizzas. My husband works at a popular pizza chain. We'll call it piece of butt for the sake of rhyming. If orders are messed up or carry-out orders don't show, the employees get to take the food home. Sometimes I order pizzas under fake names and give the numbers of local businesses as callback numbers and then purposefully never show up to pay for it. 9 times out of 10, my husband brings home the pizza I ordered. This is sinful pizza, yes, I know. But sin pizza tastes better than honest pizza, inexplicably. I plagiarized my entire dissertation and I got caught. It just felt too big, too nebulous. I had no idea where to start. I kept putting it off and putting it off again, with no idea of what to do. I could have asked for help, but I didn't. How pathetic. I thought every other student can manage to write one, but you need help. Just fudging, put your head down and do it. But I didn't. With 24 hours to go, I had nothing. So I found a dissertation on Google, and I went through and changed it enough that I thought I could get away with it. I didn't. I have a hearing in a few days, and I can't see any likely outcome other than being kicked out with no degree. I haven't told anybody, besides a nice woman on the phone from Samaritans, because I didn't know who else to call. She didn't seem to know what to say though, and I can't blame her. What is there to say, you fudging idiot? How did you not ask anyone for help at any stage? Why are you the only person who can't fudging write their own dissertation? I'm so ashamed, so ashamed, I can't tell my friends. Students have fun at university, but I feel as though there is an unspoken contract that everyone can do so because they are all working hard. I have broken my contract, and I cannot admit it. This shame pales in comparison to the shame I feel regarding my parents. I am dreading telling them more than anything. They have been nothing but supportive my entire life. They are wonderful people. They have given me so much help, sacrificed so much for me to get a good education, and I have spat in their faces. I am ashamed to be their son. Went to a shady massage parlor, and now 100% regret my decision. I don't know what I was thinking, but I went to a massage parlor yesterday, and during the handy the woman leaned down and just kissed the base of my dingy, like a peck. I didn't see any sores or anything on her lips. I'm really worried about catching something, so I've scheduled a test for next week. However, I'm just freaking out about the possibilities. I don't even know what my chances are of getting something from such a short contact, since I'm reading different things online. I feel like a terrible person. I let my with the best of me, and now I'm just panicking until my test next week. I stole my friend's folder in 3rd grade, and looking back, I deserve to get sent to a mental hospital for what I did. A little backstory to showcase little me. My parents divorced in 2nd grade, and something snapped inside of me. Every minor inconvenience in my life became worthy of a tantrum. Screaming at my parents, telling them I hate them. Threatening to jump out of windows. Once the cops even came to my house because I screamed. So often my neighbors thought I was being abused. One day in 3rd grade, I don't remember why, I snuck under my desk and into the backpack of the girl sitting across from me. I took her folder and put it in my bag. It was towards the end of class, and she told our teacher, who asked me to return it. I went into a rage, screaming that I didn't steal it, and how dare she accuse me. I gripped my desk, and a security guard and my vice principal carried me out of my class as I kicked and screamed. I was sent to the principal's office, where I kept screaming how I hated life. And I wanted to sleep eternally, and I wanted my parents to sleep eternally. My parents were called, and I was taken to a hospital where I spent the night. Then the next morning I was carried, kicking and screaming, into an ambulance. I remember my mom sitting there crying as I screamed every curse word I knew at her, saying it was her fault and I was going to pee myself if they didn't let me out. My time at the hospital they took me to was a blur, and when I was released I would be in therapy up until I graduated. I've always for some reason felt the need to defend myself, saying it wasn't my fault and blaming everyone for freaking out on me. But I'm finally ready to say it. I stole her folder, and I was the one responsible for everything that happened after. Not my parents, not the school, not my classmate. I did it, and it feels so amazing to finally say it. Edit, just because a lot of people are asking. 1. I don't remember wanting anything inside the folder. I believe I just took it because it was pretty. 2. My relationship is amazing with my parents now, and I haven't apologized for a lot of what I put them through.
I intentionally ask women well above the legal age limit to show me their ID. I work as a cashier at a grocery store. Whenever a middle-aged woman who clearly looks older than 21 purchases alcohol from me, I intentionally ask them to show me their ID. I do this because somewhere deep down I feel that if I ask them for their ID, it creates an impression that they look far younger than they are. I do this every chance I get, regardless of how busy the line is, in hopes of making them feel younger and possibly happier.
I pooped on my neighbor's doorstep. So back when I was 10, my dad asked me if I wanted to make 20. I accepted. The catch: I had to poop on our neighbor's doorstep. It was clear my dad had beef with this woman. She woke in the morning and tried to blame our chihuahua. My dad yelled at her, saying that the poop was bigger than our dog. Impossible. The point is, I don't feel bad. Forever daddy's girl. I am accidentally my son's ghostwriter. My 6th grade son had a school assignment last semester to write a poem. He was struggling as he's not the least bit interested. Since I was a child, I had always wanted to be a writer. I spent 5 minutes and wrote a quick dumb-to-me poem for him to turn in. Unbeknownst to me, his teacher submitted it to a poetry contest, which he won. And it's now going to be published in the middle school's anthology. When I was a server, I threw a customer's phone into a trash compactor. I had just started serving tables at a restaurant, and I was working my first super busy brunch shift. I had 6+ tables, and I'm not gonna lie, I had a tough time running all the mimosas that my tables were ordering. I could tell that one table of all women were getting abnormally angry about their drinks taking a while. I apologized for the delay and made a joke about it being an especially busy shift. I offered them a round of drinks on me to smooth the situation over. When I walked away, one lady murmured under her breath that I was an incompetent. See you next Thursday. Let's stop there. It's common for people to treat servers like poo. But this was the first time I ever had experience being spoken to like I was garbage. I shook it off and continued to be nice to them, but it only got worse from there. They started to laugh at me and crap talk me to one another. They told me that my future career looked pretty bleak, considering I couldn't even serve tables. Honey, even a toddler can deliver drinks. When I took their order for food, one woman refused to speak to me. She just stared at me while her friend ordered for her. By now I am angry. I asked her why she felt the need to have her friend order for her. She laughed in my face, looked down at the menu, and said because I was a dumb little beach. Due to the fact I was at work, I couldn't argue or tell her to eat shit for treating me like I was a dog. If I did, my boss would have fired me. They ended up stiffing me on their $200 check. Once they left, I realized the woman that gave me so much crap had left her phone. I took it and went out the back door to smoke a cigarette and try to calm down. Who the hell did that woman think she is? So I promptly turned off her phone, threw it in the trash compactor, and turned it on. She came back minutes later and asked multiple staff members if we found it. I told her that I didn't see it when I bust the table and that I would call her if it turned up. I never told anyone, but I never regretted doing it. When you treat people like crap, expect crappy things to happen to you.
I pretended I was selling something on Craigslist and got two strangers to meet awkwardly. Years ago, I made a new email address and got two potential buyers for a PlayStation that I was pretending to sell. I confirmed a date and time with both of them. Decided on the mall near a certain store. I asked what they'd be wearing so I could find them. I gave them each other's description for myself and then went and hung out. One walked up to the other. You could tell there was an immediate confusion. They started arguing over who had what. You could see them get annoyed once they realized what happened and wasted their time. They both stormed off on their phones. Sure enough, I got angry emails from both of them lol. I feel kind of bad about it, but it was a funny interaction to witness.
When I was in college, I illegally parked my bike onto a signpost. I did this because all the bike slots were overflowing every day, and there just wasn't enough parking for all the students. So I locked it to a nearby signpost. I can't remember what it said, probably no parking law. Anyways, I locked it, went to class, and when I came out, it had a lock on it from the campus police along with a ticket. It was one of those heavy-duty U-shaped metal bar locks. I walked home that day, then later at night when nobody was around, I went back to my bike, worked the signpost out of the ground, which was compact crushed stone, and got my bike free. The lock was still on my frame, but I could ride it. I laid the sign on the ground, rode back home, then the next day borrowed a stone wool attachment for a drill and cut through the lock. It wore down the attachment, but I got out of a $15 ticket. Yes, I was in a hole, but I was determined not to let the man win. I faked allergies at restaurants to get better service. I am a very non-confrontational person. I am also a bit picky. Going out to restaurants isn't typically an issue. But common ingredients like peanuts, mushrooms, and jalapenos all make me quite nauseous if detectable in a dish. I will ask for whatever I order to be made without it, but a lot of the time. The plate reaches the table, and sure enough, that very thing is still in the dish. Because I feel bad complaining, I'll simply eat around the item or not eat at all. And I overall don't enjoy the meal nearly as much as I'd hope for what I'm paying. Sometimes when asking for an item to be excluded, the server will ask if it's for an allergy. And one day, I just said yes. The food came out perfectly, and since then, I have been claiming to have different allergies to ensure my food is edible for me. And if the ingredient is still present, I feel more justified in complaining. Since, to them, this could have been a life-threatening mistake they've made. I've gotten a few free desserts from that. A part of me feels bad for doing this, but also, I don't think I'm actually hurting anyone. I know having a table with an allergy can put a server on edge. But I never ask for big changes to be made to dishes just for an ingredient to not be included. Short-changing in McDonald's drive-thru to make cash. As a teenager, I worked at Macca's, and most shifts, I would be at the first window taking orders and payment. I shortchange most cars $1 $2 and keep a tally, and at the end of my shift, take it from the till. I would easily make $100, and on weekends way more.
I talk behind people's back and cause drama due to childhood trauma. As a young kid, I was excessively walking on eggshells, and it constantly felt like everything was my fault. Because of this, when I'm confronted with a problem, I tend to act inauthentic towards it. It's easy to pretend rather than deal with possibly being yelled at. To get this negativity out, I will talk bad about the person behind their back, as it helps me keep my emotions in balance without feeling like it's my fault. I get loads of validation of people being like, yeah, I hate this person too. Or, yes, they are such a weirdo, and I instantly feel joy. However, I don't realize the destruction of this mean girl behavior. Before you know it, I'm the Regina George, and the entire place is going nuts. I wish I could change. Edit. I went to therapy a year ago, and it did not help. My therapist was very backhanded. Any other suggestions would be great without being snooty or rude. Edit 2. To those who asked, I prefer the validation over the gossip, if you want to call it that. I am by no means saying my behavior is warranted either. I'm also not okay with being referred to as girl or boy. I should have said this earlier though. Edit 3 and 4. I wasn't sure about admitting this happening to me. Cause it happened just a few days after my second edit, but I'm sure you guys would love to know. I got punched, but it was coming, and I'm not good with physical altercations, hence why I talked behind people's back. You guys warned me. I will say that I learned a valuable lesson, and that's never to talk behind someone's back. What goes around comes around, and I know that now. Follow for more confession stories. We post daily. I started a bar fight. It became something way worse. When I was newly 21L was a serious feminist and also a hardcore revenge fan. I had a lovely group of girlfriends who decided to take me out to a wildly popular dive bar in the city. I was so excited to be invited out with these girls as they were the hardest group of cliques I had ever encountered in my life, and I just wanted in. Well, unfortunately, the bar was huge and also so packed that evening we were shoulder to shoulder with each other. I kept getting my butt stroke, pinched, and felt up at least 6 times in the entire 45-minute period of time I had arrived. I knew it was from the obnoxious, ridiculously arrogant group of frat boys standing by our group. In fact, I slapped one dude's hand off my butt while he was in the midst of another grab. Since you had to scream, yeah, scream in order to have someone here. You and my so-called friends were telling me to relax. It's no biggie. I was furious. I wanted to F these guys up, and I wanted to start it. So I thought it would be an interesting thing for me to see if I could get them to get their asses kicked by others. I knew I wouldn't be able to do it myself. So I decided to see if I could get some revenge and have someone else do it for me. I consciously made the decision to do this. The next hand was the last hand that was going to be touching my ass for that evening. So inevitably 15 minutes into the situation, I felt someone's hand sliding down the back of my pants. I was not even aware of anything other than the rage that I felt about the situation, and so I thought, hey, I'm gonna really do something about it this time, and I did. I waited about 10 minutes, and then I stepped on the biggest ringleader's foot and gave him a push from behind, and it made it look like someone else to push them. Then I was like, what the hell are you doing? You can't push people and get away with it, and that's when shit got real. I will never forgive myself to this day because I have no idea who El hurt. But El do know that I caused a lot of bad things to happen that evening. The only friend that I am still close with to this day and has no idea that I even began all of this rescued me as the entire scenario went so that shit crazy when we were racing away. They were literally 30 guys in the street and she started screaming. They have a gun. We were driving away. I was completely in denial of the situation. I have no idea whether or not anyone got hurt. All I know is that because I thought it would be great to get revenge on a situation, I let that loud the fact that I got a lot of people hurt. I do know that nothing is ever going to make me forgive myself, but Jesus, it's really crazy how things can get out of hand. I think I went way too hard for this one. Not even my husband knows what happened. Did you like that confession story? Hit the follow button for confession stories daily.
My roommate got kicked out because I framed her, 20 for male. I have a major stealing problem. I don't even know where to begin, but I've basically been stealing stuff since kindergarten. Friends, family, workplaces, co-workers, stores, you name it. This past summer, I kinda went crazy on a stealing spree. I currently live with my girlfriend, her sister, and our roommate Julia. Julia had a girlfriend, Autumn, but they've broken up now and Autumn has since moved out. I met my girlfriend during my college orientation, along with Julia. GF's sister also attended the same school, so naturally we all became friends and started renting a small house together. Anyway, we've all been living together for about 4 years now. And I haven't really stolen too much from them, occasional small amounts of cash or sometimes weed. Until this past summer, when I was laid off from my job of 5 years. Long story short, I stole roughly $500 combined from my girlfriend, her sister, and Julia. My girlfriend is a waitress and makes tips, so it's easy to take cash from her. My girlfriend would never expect it would be me, so naturally, I blamed it on Autumn, Julia's now ex-girlfriend. Julia's had a bunch of girlfriends over the past couple years, and they're always shady of. None of us really liked Autumn anyway, because she was really messy and didn't pick up after herself. She was often late on rent, without communication, and she was just a shitty roommate in general. Anyway, this one day, I stole a little too much money at once from Julia's wallet, and Julia confronted all of us. And we all denied it, and said we all had money missing. I had taken money from everyone, but Autumn. She didn't have anything to take, and so we all narrowed it down to Autumn. So we told our landlord about it. We rent from a super chill old lady. And she basically threatened to kick Autumn out. Autumn wasn't technically on the lease. She moved in the middle of the lease and never had a written agreement. Just paid a chunk of rent to the landlord the day Autumn left. She was sobbing and bawling that she would never do anything like this, and she loves us all. This all went down in late June. Since then, Autumn and Julia have broken up, and Julia's onto the next girl. I still feel horrible about it. Follow for more confession stories.
I squeezed my bird intentionally with my own 2 hands. When I was little, 11 to be exact. I loved animals. I had this compassion for them, but at the same time I always felt power and felt the need to assert my dominance to smaller animals like ants, lizards, birds. So I was in my room with my bird. I would always in my own terms at the time play with them, when in reality I would be torturing it, squeezing it, and stuff like that. If you like this confession story, follow our page. We post unheard confessions daily. So one day I was doing the same thing, squeezing the bird. But at one point, I felt no response. I looked to it and it had finally dawned on me. I ended my own bird, my pet. I called my parents for help as from that time I had no idea what to do, of course. I didn't tell them it was me that ended it, but at that time they didn't even know it was dead. As I was watching them perform CPR to the already dead bird, I was crying. I felt guilt and I finally realized what I did. After a while they stopped as the bird, of course, did not give any response. To this day, I still remember burying the bird with my own 2 hands, the same hands that ended it. I still feel somewhat bad to this day, years later. Of course, I have stopped doing this and I haven't bought any pets after that happened. For the better.
Purposely lost my roommate's dog. Years ago I shared a place with a couple. It wasn't a small house by any means, but between us, my cat, and their 2 dogs, it was starting to get crowded. Now I absolutely adored their 2 dogs. They were wonderful, designer purse dogs. Tiny little ankle biters, but just the best. Well, for whatever reason, one of them ended up getting yet another dog, without consulting anyone else first. This dog looked stupid. Its body was completely disproportional and looked like it was the result of decades of inbreeding. I like to consider myself a chill person. And frankly, I love animals more than I do people. But I hated this effing dog with the heat and fire of a million burning stars. The dog was not potty trained, and it refused to do so either. They started off crating the dog. The dog would whine and cry all night. And as soon as they let it out, it'd shit and piss on the floor in the hallway. The dog simply refused to use the bathroom outside. You could leave it chained up outside for hours, and as soon as it had come in, it would run into the hall and piss and shit there. They stopped crating the dog when they decided it wasn't helping. During the night, it'd destroy the house, which in turn, they'd clean the next day, bitching the entire time, which I had to listen to. The dog started trying to eat off of your plate. And if you left the room, the dog would crawl up on the table and try and eat your food. My cat didn't even jump up on the counters. You couldn't leave anything laying around, even on tables. I once watched this dumbass dog chew on an iPhone for G, as if it were a chewy toy. The dog discovered it had a taste for cat poo. I didn't really care about at first, but once the dog got a taste, it wouldn't even wait until the cat was done. It'd stick their head in the little box while the cat was going. This in turn caused the cat to start shitting and pissing around the house, a problem I never, ever had in the 8 years I had that cat. So, as I said before, I adore animals. But I am also a firm believer in animals being here for my protection, food, companionship, and entertainment. I simply loathe bad animals. This dog refused any and all training of any sort. They tried everything, and this dog gave zero shits. Well, at this point, I am at my wit's end. I am coming home from night every night, finding dog shit in the hall, holes dug in the couch, and my cat absolutely terrified. So, I beat the dog. Now, before anyone gets up in arms, I didn't actually physically abuse the dog. So, I beat the dog. Now, before anyone gets up in arms, I didn't actually physically abuse the dog. It was kind of like how one might gently roll a loose newspaper and swat a cat with it. It scares them or startles them, but it's not physically harming them. People are going to bitch at me. Never hit your dog. It doesn't work. And I'll tell you F off. I've raised plenty of dogs and it most certainly does work. Well, it doesn't work with this dog. Now, the only time it behaves is when I'm in the room. When I'm not around, it's still being a terrible effing see you next Tuesday. And guys, at this point, I'm just sick of all of this. If this had been my dog, I would have already ended it. So one cold winter night, when I got home from work and once again, I discovered piles of dog shit. And the living room torn apart, I just grabbed the dog and dragged it outside. This would normally be the time I'd chain the dog up outside. Until just a little bit before the owners come home, and then I'd let it back in. Not this time. I dragged this dog outside and I just let it go. It looked at me confused for a while, but I screamed at it and shook my fist at it. And it ran away off into the snowy darkness, never to be seen again, or perhaps as a black inky cloud over the animal shelter on cremation Sundays. I'm not sorry if I had to do it all over again. The only thing that'll change is letting the dog run away sooner.